Why are friendly auctions friendlier? This is one of the top questions we get at Presence Real Estate. We've been doing friendly auctions since around about 2008, 2009. And friendly auctions were driven by consumer feedback in the market. When we opened in 2005, I did a research survey on our marketplace. And then I went around the country and I had a look at what the best professionals in real estate were, with the best reputation, the best client feedback, and the best results for their clients. In the top 20 agents across Australia that I could find, the vast majority of them used auction as their main method of sale or their only method of sale. So I was really curious about why in Newcastle, less than 1% of the transactions in the region were by auction and the rest by private treaty or other methods. And what I discovered was that there was a combination of the agents influencing the consumer behaviour and the consumer giving feedback about what they didn't like about auction, which meant less agents were suggesting it to owners as they didn't want to miss out on working on a property sale because of the method that they were putting forward. The reality of it is that owners choose the method of sale that they're going to go with, but we believe it's up to us to show all of the available options and then put forward the best recommendation that synergizes with the owner. So what problems did consumers have in the marketplace with standard auctions back when we started this process? There were 5 main objections that we identified with regular auctions that prevented buyers from being engaged enough to go through the process. And it was more pronounced when the market was a bit quieter in some of the phases we had back there around 2005 to 2007 when we started the research. The first one was, on a standard auction, no price guide. Now we've overcome that with friendly auctions, whether it's written or you get it immediately upon request without instant replies, as referenced in a previous Presence Pulse article. You will receive a price guide that is fully compliant based on the range of comparable sales out there in the market. Of course, you'll be making the decision whether you believe it's worth that range, whether you want to go over that range. It's just a guide, but that guide will be no more than 10% if it's a range, or it'll be a single figure a lot of the time where it's guide and then the single figure. And then you can choose whether you go over that or not. The second barrier that purchasers had with an auction property is because you're buying on an unconditional sale contract, it is a good idea to get a pest report, building report, or in the case of a strata property, a strata inspection report. Now, buyers couldn't see the reason why every buyer had to go and spend full price on a pest and building report, and then there was only going to be one purchaser that bought it. All of these inspectors are reputable, they've got their own professional standards they need to live up to, and in some states of Australia, it's quite common that an owner will provide the report. So we made this, before the legislation happened, an idea that the vendor would fund the cost of the report. However, it needs to be on an independent panel of inspectors that are willing to speak to the buyers as if they've purchased a report, give them the additional verbal intel that goes with the written report, and then if they're successful, or if they want to do it beforehand, they can pay a smaller fee and have the report transferred into their name, making it a contract between the inspector and the purchaser, just if you rang that company on your own. It really does help if you're not 100% sure if you want to purchase that property, or you're not sure what price it's going to go for. So it's reducing the overhead, the cost to participating and being a candidate for the property. The third one was the cost of legal advice. Now this has changed a lot, and I believe that we've had a bit of an influence on this. Because we do so many friendly auctions, what we wanted to do is put together a program of a panel of solicitors and conveyancers that are willing to see a purchaser and review the contract for sale before they are going to bid on an unconditional contract, which is a great idea. Now those forward-facing, independent conveyancers and legal firms are going to review that contract for you. They won't make money on the contract review if they're on that panel. However, they will charge for a conveyance if you purchase a property. Now, of course, you can assess whether that is the price range you're comfortable with, but it's become a very popular process for modern forward-facing law firms and conveyancing firms to remove that cost as well and give you the intel on what you need to know before you go and bid. The fourth one has amalgamated over time, but initially there was a lot of challenge getting finance for an auction, especially if there was no price being quoted. It was very hard to understand the price guide if it wasn't being given out by the agent, and then you'd have to go to the bank and try to get finance, and they'd say, well, for what number? So what we've done in recent times is obviously having the price guide, and a lot more lenders now being pro-auction, which has obviously become a more popular thing across Australia with popular TV programs like The Block, making that very common to purchase at auction. Most lenders now have a facility available where that you can get the property assessed with your criteria, and you can get an understanding where you can bid up to without having to put extra cash in to top up the loan. The valuation is often done after the purchase price, and they'll look at the contract for sale, and a lot of them do go at the contract for sale price. It's totally up to you where you go to on an auction property, and you will get your own advice from your broker or your bank as to how far that you can go comfortably within serviceability and the deposit you've got and any other equity across your portfolio if you had more than one property. It certainly has made it easier though, and there's more flexible contract conditions in a friendly auction now than in a standard auction. So usually it's 10% deposit up front. There might be ability to have a different deposit on exchange and an installment deposit somewhere between exchange and settlement. There may also be ability to negotiate different contract conditions in relation to settlement and other items. And we really open the door for this with friendly auctions, particularly with the legal panels that are willing to look at the contract at no charge and request those changes well in advance before you register through the online bidding platform or in person. Lastly, the pressure of auction. A lot of people are worried that they're going to end up in the fight, flight or freeze position, or even worse, they're worried about paying way more than they want to and getting carried away with the emotion. Now, it's no doubt that when you're purchasing a property, whether it's auction or private treaty or expression of interest or any of those other methods, that there is a lot of emotion that can come up because you're purchasing a piece of Australia, whether it's strata title or Torrens title. There's going to be a lot of money involved, and there can be a bit of tension in the negotiation for you not being sure how it's going to go. Now, auctions do offer a more transparent negotiation environment, but we have really opened the door with friendly auctions to negotiate prior to the auction, or have an online bid at the auction, have someone else bid for you at the auction, or have you really well informed so you don't feel as much pressure. Some purchasers do prefer the transparency of an auction. They've got all the costs out of the way, they're now just bidding on clean terms for the property, and they can see where the other buyers are at. Online is also a very legitimate way of doing it, and we have the latest online bidding platforms that mean that you don't have to physically be there in person. You could be anywhere in the world participating on that auction and have done all of your due diligence prior. The friendly auction process has a lot more detail in it for the agent in communicating to buyers, and if it is going to be a chance of selling prior, the agent will let the purchasers know when that is a consideration. A lot of the time we'll be sending out prompts if there's been other interest in purchasing prior, and the more transparent and open you are with your feedback to the agent, the better information they can give to the owner. When the owner has enough information to determine whether selling prior or at auction is best, or to what to set their reserve price at based on the feedback that's come in and any offers that might have happened prior, then we're in a position to decide whether it will happen prior or at auction. And the key thing here is communication. Friendly auctions provide more communication to purchasers, more information to vendors, and it actually ends up better for all parties. Even the agent has a more structured way of doing things. So it's not surprising that friendly auctions have a higher clearance rate in the first 6 weeks over most private treaty properties in most areas. If it's friendlier on buyers, then therefore it's friendly on owners. Because if you've got more buyers that can participate as a result of removing a lot of those barriers, even than a private treaty property, then the vendor is going to end up with a better chance of achieving the information they need to make the best decisions to sell their property. With the agent having a structured campaign, it all fits together really well. So it is possible to have a sale method that's a win-win-win for buyer, seller, and the agent in a nice structured and transparent way. And that's what friendly auctions are all about. Friendly auctions are designed for the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie marketplace. Designed for exactly what we've got going on here, but there are people across the country that are using friendly auctions now as well, after we released some literature on it in 2015 and a lot of other reputable agencies took it up. If you'd like more information on this, feel free to speak to one of our agents and we can unpack it further for you and see if it's appropriate for your next sale.